And y'all know what I do on Monday nights. I call it Mindset to Millions. Yes, 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 yes. So excited. Thank you for coming on the platform on tonight. I have a wonderful guest I'm going to introduce in a moment. But of course, I want to tell you, it is so good to be in these rooms on tonight. It is so good to be on this platform because we're going to be talking about some things that's going to help you get to your next. We have so many listeners all over. We want you to jump in the chat, ask questions, make comments. Let us know you're out there. Let us know that you are in the place on tonight. And I'm super excited just getting back from the DMV celebrating with Dr. Marcia Whitaker. Y'all know her. She comes on Tuesday nights, Up Sis Up program. So excited. Had a great time over there with her. But tonight is Mindset to Millions. And I want to introduce my special guest, one of my homegirls, one of my doctor sisters, Dr. Tania A. White is in the building. What's up, sis? How you doing?
Slapping hands like Michael Jordan.
Oh my goodness. It is so good to have you in the building on tonight. We were just together in Detroit at Michigan State months ago, and we just cut up real bad. I mean, we was taking pictures and just laughing, having a great time. So when I got the opportunity to invite you to this platform, you said yes, and I'm so happy to have you here on tonight. So I want to say a little bit about her, and then I'm going to let her jump in and tell us the real deal on her. But she is actually an international keynote speaker. She's a HR leadership strategist. She's an executive coach. She's an author. She be making them bold moves, y'all. She's all about flourishing and dominating. That's her whole thing. Be bold, make a move. It's time to flourish and dominate. And just so many things I can say about her. When I think about Dr. Tania, I think about somebody who have good energy. Isn't it important to be around people that not only do they have great energy, but they have the manifestation of what they are teaching? And she's been doing what she's doing for nearly 3 decades. I know she don't look like it, but she's been working in the area of leadership, human resources, entrepreneurship. She has a unique talent for making meaningful connections with her audience, and she has a remarkable ability to help others to maximize their strengths. So tonight, our theme tonight, when I thought about her and I thought about what she do, the value of leadership, power, and influence. Influence is important. And she's going to talk to us about influence, power, leadership, and so many things. But she's on a mission to impact audience, train individuals, organizations to understand the components of leadership, okay, and their power and their influence. So, woman of God, I've said a lot about you. I can go on and on. Your bio is hot, it's fire. What do you want the people to know about you on tonight?
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much, Dr. T, for having me here. You said it right. Our connection, our synergy it's always a great time being with you. And it's an honor to be on your platform and to talk with your listeners today and your viewers. What I want you to know about me is that I'm that chick from the neighborhood. I'm the girl that grew up down the block, laughing, joking, having a good time. I'm a serious person when it comes to family. Family at heart, family first. I'm a mother. I'm a wife of 22 years this year.
Yay!
22 years old, but married 22 years to my college and a mother of one. But entrepreneurship and business is in my blood. Leadership is very important. But what's most important is how I handle people and how I treat treat each other, because for me we're all God's children, and so what I am depositing in you, the seeds I'm sowing in you, is going to go someplace else. Good and or bad is going to go someplace else. And so I want to thrive and strive to make sure that all those things are the good things that are happening. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. Well, no, that's not it. Let me tell y'all some more about me. Let me
I love it.
Let me tell you, I'm also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Yes.
5 years, yesterday, as a matter of fact. I'm also a charter member for Jack and Jill of America, Monarch Cities in
Oh,
south of Chicago. And I'm very, very active in both my sorority and my sisterhood in Jack and Jill of America. I'm a mom of a daughter who's a scholar, who's an athlete, a cheer
yes.
competitor, number one. And I'm very active in my community. So,
Mhm.
and I
Yes.
love the roller skate. So,
Oh my goodness. Do you roll and bounce?
that I do, but I want to bounce a little bit more. So my goal this year is to do a true JB. Like I want to really get down. So I know how to skate. My cousins and everybody do the JB, but I'm gonna get there. Ship
Awesome.
conference, watch.
Awesome, awesome. Well, what an honor, what a pleasure to have you on this platform. And, I knew that I wanted you in the building because I've seen you on the big stage, sharing tips and helping families and people and entrepreneurs and folks that are in corporate America, all types of folks understanding the power of influence and leadership, and getting to their next. So we're going to just jump right in. We're going to jump right in. And again, to my visitors, welcome. So glad to have you on the platform on tonight, listening in or watching. So Dr. Tanita, when you think about utilizing power of leadership, in professional settings like work. I know you do a lot around HR. I'm sure we have listeners that are entrepreneurs, we have listeners that are business owners that are working in corporations. They may be teachers. I don't know. They may be on the community college levels. Can you share some tips on how to effectively utilize the power of leadership in professional settings?
Absolutely. I think that the most fundamental and easiest thing for you to remember is that you're always on stage and that people
Mm,
remember how you make them feel before they remember what you say. And that's very, very key because when we talk about leadership, we are talking about your influence and the power of your influence, not the title that you have, not how much money you have, not the car you're driving, but really your influence on others and how you're getting others to move and take direction from you. So lead by example. Make sure that you are positive in your actions. Know your emotional intelligence. And what do I mean by that? Self reflect. What are your triggers? What makes you upset? What makes you happy? What are those things that you feel you have to grow in? And then continue to learn and grow yourself. In a professional environment, it's okay to have fun, it's okay to laugh, but you also have to have boundaries. You want to make sure that you communicate effectively. You want to make sure that you communicate appropriately with people. And what do I mean by that? The way I communicate with you, Dr. Tammie, is based upon what you've shown me how you can handle my communication. Someone else may say, "You're too direct. I need you
mm,
talk to me like that. You're screaming at me." And it's like, no, I'm just being direct. I'm not screaming. So just understanding your audience and being in tune with your audience, being okay to say if you've made a mistake and or give accolades to somebody. So all of
mm.
those are just small things that you can do along the way in a professional environment to make sure that you're harnessing the power of your leadership. And there's so many more. I can keep going on and on and on,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I love that. And thinking about, you know, I love what you said. People are interested in the fact that you care more than what you know and how they're treated. And would you suggest or say that we have to know how to treat ourselves? We have to know how to be professional in who we are before we can even give that to others. What do you say about that?
absolutely, we do. And that's where that self leadership, that self reflection come in. We have to know how we're showing up because if I don't know how I'm treating myself, how I'm showing up, I won't show up right for you, which means if I can't handle my emotions and my attitude and I'm showing up with a nasty disposition, but I don't recognize it, then how am I
Mhm.
going to how to be positive in a work environment and how to properly
Mm.
customer, how to not curse somebody out. Like, how am I going to show you how to do that? So it's very important for us first to self lead, to understand how we're showing up, to understand what our disposition is like, so then we can show others. Because again, we're leading by example. We don't have to say the words, the actions speak louder than words. We've heard that so many times, right?
Mhm.
Speak louder than words. And that's very, very true in leadership. People are not going to just listen to your words. They're watching your actions. And again, how are you making them feel? What are you doing? What is your body language saying? I may not say a word to you, but if I'm all frowned up, my nose turned to my head sideways, I'm like this, I'm saying more than my words could ever say. And so we want to make sure we model that behavior and teach that behavior as well. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thinking about individuals who have teams, whether they are realtors that have a group of people that work alongside them and maybe they supervise them, or they may be in corporate America and they have teams that are working alongside them. They may be a principal who have teachers, and counselors that are under them. What are some of the common pitfalls that leaders should avoid when trying to influence others?
When leaders are trying, and here's the key word there, trying to influence others, you're influencing whether you're trying to or not, right?
Mm,
Pitfalls that I often see when I'm coaching or doing consulting in corporations, is that people try to prove their power. They try to show that I am the boss. I'm the one you should be listening to. I have the authority. And that's the wrong thing to do. You don't need to stump your feet and scream, I'm the boss. You don't need to raise your voice and holler. You don't need to always have the last word. It's okay to collaborate. It's okay to allow someone else to lead the thought, to have ownership over a project. It's okay for you to admit that you've done something wrong and or you missed the mark. Hold yourself accountable like you're holding everybody else accountable. And when you miss the mark, it's okay to say, hey, you know what? Ooh, I dropped the ball on that. But let it be a learning opportunity, right? And so, oh, I dropped the ball. However, here's what I'm going to do to fix it, or here how we can fix it.
mm,
Collaboration is going to be key when you're trying to work with teams and other people. One of the key things that I often try to do, and I like to teach my companies and my clients, is connection before content. And that's with anybody, right? And so, what that means is before you dive in to try and tell me something or tell them something, connect with them. Make sure you have a moment to find out, how are you doing today? How was the weekend? How's the family? We don't have to be besties, and we will not be besties because it's a work relationship. However, if I know a little bit more about you, I can work better with you, and vice versa. And so that's something we want to understand. And so, in building relationships with teams and having leadership dynamics in our teams, we want to be able to be vulnerable. We want to be able to share a laugh from time to time and
mm,
then get back serious. We want to be able to show them, hey, you know what? I may have the title as the leader because of where I sit in this organization. However, I can still learn from you as well. We can learn from each other.
mm,
Or what do you have to add to this? And even if there's a process that's being shared or there's a recommendation, even if it's not the idea that you have, allow them to hear it out. Allow them to run with it and see where it goes. I mean, empower them to make a decision and own a process. And that's okay. And so oftentimes the pitfalls we run into is that we don't want to give over the reins. We want to always let people know that we're the boss, we're the ones who's making the decisions, but you have more power in unison than you do alone. And so
mm.
that's something key we should have.
I
Yeah,
like that. I
effective communication.
like that. Hmm. Hmm. I like that. And I'm going to tell you why I like that, because when you're building good teams, there's no room for egos, and you said that you don't have to always have the answer or the final word, when someone have an idea. And I've seen that has happened for me. Someone may have an idea that I might be struggling with it a little bit, but how's this going to boost this person esteem, if I at least give them an opportunity to prove themselves. And even if it don't work out, we can work through that, and but to give people a chance. And so I love that, because sometimes the pitfalls is what I'm hearing you say is we're not giving people enough for ourselves, sharing sometimes, some transparent moments, but some happy moments, and maybe not becoming best friends with everyone you work with, but respecting people that you work with. So when you're thinking about individuals and developing leadership skills that's going to have a positive impact on teams and organizations, can you share with us a time or a circumstance or a situation in your own personal experiences that you learned from? Maybe it didn't look positive initially, maybe it was a struggle, maybe it was a challenge, but you were able to take it and learn from it.
Yeah, I can. And I had to chuckle on that because I always get the same experience in my mind that was most impactful. But it had the opportunity to go left very, very quickly if I didn't take it the right way. So I was a regional director over 72 locations, a HR regional director over 72 locations at this particular time. And it was senior living. And I'm in a room and I'm talking to all of my HR people. And as we're talking back and forth, I'm seeing blank stares and I'm giving them instruction on our next phase. And here are our goals. And here's what we're going to do. And I'm telling them everything, right? And it was a 2-day training. And so I saw blank stares and the engagement wasn't really there. And I'm looking like, okay, something's off. Not sure really what's off, but something's off. So later on that evening, one of the ladies called me and she said, Tania, can I tell you something? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Were you mad at us? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she was like, just the way you were talking, it just seemed like you were kind of upset and we didn't understand like did we do something wrong and you was giving us all these rules. And I'm like, well, no, I was just telling you, a state comes in, you do this, this, and this. And I was just being, and she said, sometimes you do that and we just can't tell. And I said, really? I said, how often do you feel like that? And she was like, quite often. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she said, usually you're so nice and you talk and you're laughing, but other times it just seems like you're kind of cold and we can't tell we've done something wrong. So I said, okay, noted. So the next day I go into the room, mind you, 70 something people in the room. Now, here's the kicker. We're in the room. It's not just my HR people. So it was a matrix environment. So I had 72 HR people, 72 salespeople, and 72 dining people in the room at the exact same time. So I still had to do my presentation. So I get up and I said, I had the opportunity to, I know they talk to each other, right? So own that space and own what I was just told and address it head on. Or I could have just said, well, I'm going to ignore it. It doesn't matter to me and act like it doesn't exist. And they would have still kept talking about that and the fact that somebody told me, right? So I get in front of class. And for me, coffee is like a warming effect for me. So if I'm having coffee or chocolate, that kind of like de-stresses me for some reason. So I had my Starbucks coffee and I'm like, okay, guys, we're going to do something different today. And they're like, okay. And I said, so instead of jumping into the presentation, I just want to ask a question. I said, how many of you feel that when you engage with me at times, I'm screaming, I'm hollering, and or I'm not approachable? And no one said anything. And I said, this is a safe space, very safe space. I said, it's okay. It's okay. And I took a sip of my coffee because I was nervous, right? And I said, just raise your hand. And all the hands started going up. And I said, wow. And I said, okay, let's talk about it. I said, so tell me, help me understand. What do you feel? What do you see? And what exactly do I say that make you feel this way? And so somebody raised their hand and said, last week it happened. You called me, and when you called, you didn't say hi. You just started asking me about the investigation, all the things that was done, and if I sent this and if I sent that, and you just gave me a request of what you needed from me. And I said, okay. I said, but I wasn't mad. She said, but I couldn't tell. She said, I did something wrong. And in that moment, I was like, wow. I said, okay. I had to self assess. I said, for me in that moment, I was thinking, well, IDPH was just here. And so I need to make sure we cover all bases. And I'm just going right in for the gusto. Let's do this, 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 and this. And so I asked a couple other people, does that happen to you? Does that happen to you? And so I realized in that moment that when I'm under stress and when I am super focused and in a deadline position, that I'm extremely direct. And most of the time, I'm not like that. Usually I'm, hey, how you doing? What's going on? How's your day? And then we get to the conversation. And so that was a level up moment for me one, to create a safe environment for them to be able to tell me when this was happening, but also a teachable moment as a leader. And so what I did in that moment, I came up with a concept of, I said, for me, I love coffee. And I said, so if I'm ever engaging with you and I say or do something that makes you feel uncomfortable, I want you to ask me if I've had my coffee today. And that's gonna be a trigger for me to tell me that I'm doing something that's making you uncomfortable. And they were like, we can do that. And so then started off as an uncomfortable situation for one. It then became a connector for us. And now there's this trust environment where, hey, you know what? I was able to tell her something about herself that made me feel uncomfortable. She was able to receive it, address it. And now, okay, we can build that relationship. And then I was tested on it. About a week or so later, I call one of the managers up and I start talking. And then I get to the end of what I'm saying. I say, you got me? And I hear a deep voice, a deep sigh. I'm like, hello, are you there? Tania,
Have you had your coffee?
coffee? And I was like, no, not yet. And I paused. I was like, I just started.
Mm,
And I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it. She said, yeah. I said, okay, let's start over. And so
wow.
and to build a different type of relationship. And so
Hmm.
that I've had that I was able to learn from. I was able to be vulnerable in that moment in front of so many other people and say, hey, you know what? Ooh, I've missed the mark and I've done something that's not so good. But I was also able to fix it and build from that. And now they use that as a tool when they are encountering that with their subordinates and colleagues. And so
Hmm. And what
that
I love about that, what you're saying, the key word that I heard you say is self assessment. I think a lot of times it's easy to deflect, it's easy to put off. It's very easy to say it was them and not us, but to self-reflect because even in thinking about who you are building, influence and power and leadership, if I can't look within myself and ask the hard questions, do people know that I care more than what I think I know? Is there an opportunity for whether it's my clients or my coworkers, my colleagues, for them to be able to call me on the carpet? Whether it's vendors that I'm working with, what is it that people are thinking about when they think about us and our power and our influence and in our leadership? So thank you for sharing that transparency there, because I think when you're thinking about specific techniques and strategies that leaders can use to inspire and motivate their teams, one of those things is having an open door policy. What are some other techniques or strategies that you would say would be helpful if we have a leader on tonight, or we have an entrepreneur, or we have someone working in corporate America, and they're trying to have unity in the workplace? Because we spend a lot of hours working. We spend more hours working than we do with our family, than we do with our children. So what are some other techniques that and strategies that leaders can do that can inspire and motivate their teams?
So, and you're right, we spend most of our hours with our colleagues at work. And so earlier I talked about connection before content, and making a personal connection is very, very important. So in our office environments and when I'm coaching executives, I often tell them the first thing you should do when bringing on new staff is make a personal connection. Find out what motivates them, find out what makes them happy, find out what makes them tick, right? Other things you can do is making sure that you have clear communication and effective communication. See, because when you learn about your colleagues and you understand them, then you're understanding also not only what motivates them, but how to effectively communicate them. What will move
Mhm.
them to action? What can you say and or do that will get the best out of them? What's their value add and what makes them sparkle every day, right? But the other thing too is self care, showing empathy. We oftentimes, when we're working together, so often you hear about what's not going right and what you didn't do, but taking time to, in the moment, though, timely, um, give success and appreciation and applause for those things that they are doing correct. Um, asking for input, getting feedback. Sometimes we don't
Mhm.
solicit feedback enough. Soliciting feedback from our neighbors, asking how can we do things better. When I say neighbors, I'm talking about our
Oh
work neighbors
yeah.
right
Hmm.
next to us, right? How can
Hmm.
better. And then oftentimes, more recently, we've gotten into this whole Zoom space, right? And this social distancing. And so bringing it back to huddles. Let's get out
Hmm.
get away from your desk, get off of the Zoom. If you have a space where you guys can get together, let's huddle and talk. Let's just shoot the breeze for a moment and talk about the day. What's going on? How are things going? Are you addressing issues that you need to
Hmm.
help work through? And that can be in any environment. What are some of the
Hmm.
what are some of the successes that we can celebrate with you, family and or personal and or professional? And so just building those areas. Let's see. Self-care, I talked about that. Talked about emotional intelligence.
Well,
Um,
let's stay right there for a minute. Emotional intelligence. Let's go a little bit deeper there in thinking about the value of emotional intelligence. Because listen, life be life, and we know things happen. Before people get to the job, before people walk out their door. Something major could have went down. A parent can be ill. A child could be sick. A person may be going through a separation, divorce. Someone died. So in the workplace, and I know you are a strategist and you help entrepreneurs, you help HR managers, you help leaders work through emotional intelligence and leveraging leadership with power and influence. I want you to talk about how do you really do that? Last week was an interesting week for me. I had lots and lots to do, and we had so many meetings, so many Zooms. Had to go to my son's graduation on Friday. Left from there, going to Baltimore to Dr. Marcia's event, and I had to get back here tonight for this. Like emotionally, sometimes you can be all over the place, and plus, you still got life going on. How important is emotional intelligence in leveraging leadership, power, and influence?
it's extremely important because your emotional intelligence is going to allow you to build relationships, is going to allow you to show others compassion. The thing is this: emotional intelligence, of course, it starts with us, right? Self-reflection. We have to understand where our triggers are and what's going to move us and how we're showing up and why we think the way we think, why we respond the way we respond, why we're acting the way that we're acting. Once we understand that for ourselves, then when you show up, you can show up and just had a bad accident and now you're walking through the door. And when I say accident, I mean like car, like maybe coffee spilled on
Mm-hmm.
your
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And you walk through the door and you have an attitude. If I know how to handle myself and my triggers, then your bad attitude is not going to shift me, right? And so I'll be able to handle you and help you navigate that situation as a leader better when I know how I'm showing up. But if my attitude, if I'm, nobody gonna talk to me that way, you better not never roll your eyes at me or raise your voice at me because they did that as a kid, right? And so now I'm not dealing with my own self, and you come in and I say good morning, you're like good morning, you raise your voice because you just dropped your coffee. Now I got an attitude and I'm responding out of my feelings and my emotions because I haven't dealt.
Mm-hmm.
And so our emotional intelligence will allow us to handle situations and circumstances better. It will allow us to build rapport with our colleagues. It will allow us to address difficult situations and not be emotionally moved by it. It will allow us to make decisions, business decisions that are based upon facts and detail and data and information and not on emotion, not because I'm tied to this because it was my idea, but because it makes the best sense for the organization. And so
Mm-hmm.
emotional intelligence carries us. It can have the ability to carry you a long way in your career, in your endeavors, and or stop you right in your tracks if you cannot get yourself together and understand how you're showing up. And so I often tell people your emotional intelligence is going to start with your self-assessment. You have to look into a mirror and you have to really ask yourself, What's your triggers? Why are you showing up this way? And then if you have a situation where you may not have responded the right way, you need to self-assess. Okay, why did I respond this way? What was I thinking about that made me respond this way? What happened that allowed me to do this? And in doing so, now you can figure out, okay, here's the gap. Here's what happens. Good example, the one I just gave you. When I self-assessed, I realized, okay, when I'm stressed or when there's something major happening, I don't have time to play and laugh and ha ha he. I'm really straightforward. So me knowing that, now I know how I can show up for those who I have to interact with. And so now I know, okay, here's what I need to do different. And so I may not be able to tell if I'm in that zone. So I'm giving somebody else permission to tell me when I'm in that zone, right?
Mhm.
Some of the things you have to do that can help you with your emotional intelligence. And always be a life learner. Always be ready to self assess and reflect. What did I do well? What didn't go so well? Okay, what could I have done better? Did I handle myself properly? Did I show myself and those who I'm interacting with what that looks like? Am I building good relationships? Am I communicating effectively? Am I shifting my communication style accordingly? Or am I saying, well, it's all about me and this is just how I communicate. This is just how I am. How many times have we heard that? This is how I am. Well,
Yep. Yep. And I think too, in adding in what you're saying is mindfulness. I think sometimes we're just moved by what's going on. I love the scripture that talks about, we don't walk by sight alone, but we walk by faith. And so just because other people are acting out or feeling a certain kind of way, we don't have to go there. One of the things I often say is I am a whole vibe, and I cannot let my energy be impacted in a negative way based on someone's else energy. And same thing, vice versa. So I think mindfulness and meditating and visualization of if I react versus respond, it's a lot of people who are in prison right now because they reacted and they did not respond accordingly. And I was in Baltimore at Pastor Mike Freeman Church, and oh my goodness, I just love him. He's hilarious. I've been wanting to go to his church for years, and I was able to go on Sunday. And he used an example, and I thought this was tough. This was tough because I don't know, he talked about what would Jesus do, and I was like, well, Jesus might would do that. I don't know if Tammy would do that, but he talked about an employee spitting on another employee's face, and to spit on somebody is the ultimate insult. I mean, that's just hands down the worst of worst. And the other employee beat the person down. I mean, took the person out. And so the company had to reprimand the person, both of them, but also the person that got spit on. And so, we're in the audience like, that ain't right, that ain't fair. But what he was saying is, you have to control yourself even when uncontrollables come your way. Because when you react to something versus respond accordingly, you can be in prison. And a lot of people are in prison because they reacted and did not respond. And I thought, wow, that's deep right there. Jesus, work on me. Okay.
that is true and that's deep and I'm right there with you. I'm not sure if I'm there yet. Some other things I can handle, but the spitting, we may have a whole situation with that. Vaseline, nails, hair back, just a whole situation.
Right. The Vaseline and everything. But we are a work in progress. And I think the whole premise of what he was saying is we cannot allow what people do or say move us in a way that will impact us in a negative way that will not show our very best selves in what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So good stuff, good stuff. So other thoughts that I have that I want you to talk about, and welcome. We see people are in the chat. Good to see you, Michelle and Renee. And we have tons of people that are on that are not chatting just yet, but people are in the chat. So people are here and they're listening. Feel free if you have any questions, any comments, put those in the chat, and Dr. Tania would be more than glad to address your questions. So how can leaders, and this ties in a little bit with what we were just talking about, navigate through challenging situations and conflicts while maintaining influence? So think about that for a moment. There's negative conflicts, there's negative situations, there's challenges all around us, but I need to maintain influence, because if you are the leader, you're still the leader. You can't be best friends with everybody that you work with, everybody that you lead. Boundaries. Where do boundaries come in when you're working through conflicts and still being the influencer that you need to be in the workplace, or as an entrepreneur, or out there, even with your friends?
So there always should be boundaries. But for me as a Christian woman, I always try to make sure that I'm addressing the conflict, the issue, the challenge in the workplace, but I'm also showing God's love and my care, right?
Mm.
The boundaries come into play with how I show the care and God's love and or the accountability piece. So good example. I had an employee that I had to give a counseling to for an action that he took. And in this meeting, I am addressing the situation and he starts to cry. Now, him crying, the softer side of me, the Christian side of me, okay, I understand that you're feeling now remorse for the action you took. I don't have to be cold, and I don't have to be such to the point that it's like, well, you did it and I don't care and get out. No, I paused, gave him some tissue, asked him if he needed a moment, and then I continued the conversation. And so in that moment, that was still me able to show care. I didn't get up and hug him or anything like
Right.
that. Never said I was sorry. I'm sorry I have to do this. No, you don't apologize. No, I'm not sorry. You did this act and I have to address it, but I can address it with compassion. I can address it with care. I can still handle you respectfully while I'm addressing the situation. And I think that goes the same way with all of our relationships. We can be sister girlfriends outside. And if something happens, I can still tell you that you've done something to offend me. I don't have to be nasty when I tell you, though. I don't have to be condescending when I'm speaking about the situation. I can just be straight up. You offended me when this happened. This bothered me. Here's how I felt about this. Now let's move on. Here's what I expect, clear communication. Here's how I expect to be handled. Here's what I thought this meant. Am I right? Am I wrong? Correct it and then move on. And so that's kind of the parameters that I try to work within. People often talk about the golden rule: treat others how you want to be treated. And sometimes that might not work depending on who you're dealing with, because they may not mind being spit on. They may not mind being cussed out or beat up. Well, I do. And so
Mhm.
doing that to me. But what I often try to do is I think about the most sensitive person, the most
Mhm.
valuable person, right? And I tell people to do the same. So get somebody in mind that's very, very valuable to you. Grandma who's 94 years old, pray,
Mhm.
or that newborn baby, or whatever's most valuable. And think about how you will handle them. Think about what you would say to them. Think
Mhm.
about the choice of words you would use trying to describe a situation to them. Think about how you would try to correct their behavior and the care you would take to communicate with them. And if they don't understand it, you will rephrase it and recommunicate. You wouldn't just get upset, right? Think about that. And that's how you handle the person you're interacting with in that
Mhm.
same way you want somebody to handle the most valuable person to you. And it goes a long way. I've had people in those situations, and I've had some people like, I would never do that. And then they watch it in action, and like, oh, wow, I didn't know I could do that. Yes, you can. And then you've allowed this person to be addressed, you've allowed the situation to be handled, and you allow them to be intact with their character and their demeanor, and they don't feel stepped on and beat down and cursed out and misused. They can still,
Mhm.
okay, you know what? I'm prideful. Okay, I'm good. I can do this. And that's how
Mhm.
we don't want them beat up after we talk to them.
That's right. That's right. And I love the fact, and I know you're a woman of faith, and and so am I, and that we can carry our values and our belief systems in our, platforms, whether we're entrepreneurs in corporate America, whether we're in school systems, but treating people in a way that's respectful, kind. And I know communication plays a very critical role in that, and everybody's not from the same place. Everybody's not from the same, neighborhood, so to speak. So learning people languages, I think there's a value in that. I know that there's the five love languages in romantic relationships, but I think even in the workplace, there's different types of languages that people need. And an example, I may have someone that worked with me and money is not their highest priority, but sometimes leadership opportunities, being recognized, being put out front. And then may have another person that don't put me out front. I want to work behind the scenes. This is my language. I want to support. I want to do my very best. But if you put me out there, it's going to take me out of my comfort zone. So understanding people languages, where they excel at, and then be able to effectively communicate that verbally and non-verbally. I like what you talked about earlier, sometimes in our body language. Have you ever been in a meeting and people are like this the whole time, or they're like, or they're, facial expressions and things of that nature. So talk to us a little bit about how how important it is to be mature. I think when you're thinking about influence, I know there's a level of influence that I have in my life, and I could be mature or I could be immature. I know, same with you. Talk to us about the value of being mature and however we interact, however we handle ourselves, however we communicate, however we utilize our power and even our influence. Talk about the value of being mature in that.
Our maturity is going to take us a long way, right? And you know how oftentimes we hear, not oftentimes, it is fact that what's on social media and what we put in the internet world, that once it's out there, it's out there. That's kind of the same way when we respond in an immature manner to somebody. When we respond in an immature manner in our tone of voice, in our actions, whether we're throwing something, screaming, or our body language, that's going to stay with them. And although
Mhm,
with them another time and it may be different, they're going to remember that, right? And those who witness that is going to remember that. And they're going to talk about that. Hey, you remember that time when we were in that meeting, Tania got upset and she threw the bottle across the table at somebody? Those types of things, right? And so if we're talking about leadership, and we're talking about growing our presence, whether we're an entrepreneur, whether we're growing in our career, whether we're growing our business, and or we're modeling behavior in our community, we want to always make sure that we're mature in our response. And if
mhm,
we know what to say, or we're upset and we can't respond in a manner that we'll be proud of if we saw it on TV later, then just don't say a word and just smile. Because
mhm,
it's this, how you respond in immaturity, it has lasting impact on those who are the recipients of your response.
mm, my goodness. And people remember how we made them feel. It is so important to offer value and respect in every circumstance. One of the things I used to say all the time, how you treat your kids, how you treat your spouse, how you treat your parents, people model what you do. If you get out here and talk crazy to your children and call them everything but a child of God, or your spouse or your parents, and you're rude and negative, I mean, that's what people remember. People remember, how did you make them feel? And it doesn't mean that you have to be all fuzzy, duzzy, wuzzy, and all of that, because different people got different temperaments and personalities. But respecting people and communicating in a way that speaks maturity and wisdom goes a long way. What are you reading right now? I'm reading a couple of good books I think I want to talk about. What are you reading, and what would you recommend for leaders who want to demonstrate power, influence, leadership? What should we be reading?
Any and everything on leadership. So literally, I try to read as much as I can. Ironically, I was looking at some books earlier today, so I still have them on my desk. But I'm reading the Leadership Challenge, which is
Hmm.
a very good book for leaders as we talk about how to be a leader and understanding the roadmaps of leadership and how what is leadership and how we show up. The Leadership
Mm,
Challenge book that will help us and help you navigate that. The other book that I'm rereading that I really, really just love is The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey.
mm,
That particular one, sometimes in our workplace and as leaders, depending on how we respond in situations, our employees and colleagues may not trust that we have their best interests on a particular,
mm,
and or we have to continue to build trust with that new client and new colleagues and new leaders coming into organizations and or our ecosystem. And so this book will really allow us to be able to do that. And I have a fun book I'm reading right now. I need to get a little fun book.
mhm.
Black Cake was my last one, but those,
Okay.
and I oftentimes when I'm traveling, I love to stop in the airport and try to see if anything is there from Harvard Business Review. Every
Mm,
top 10 I'm grabbing, I'm reading on the plane and or once I get home. And then John Maxwell, of course, is some John Maxwell. So those are
awesome.
fun
I
books. What
love it.
let me get
What
my
am I reading? I tell you, one book that I'm reading, and I'm pulling it up now, that is really, really good. It's called Unoffendable. It's
ooh,
called Unoffendable, by Brent Hasten. Unoffendable. What I love about that book is it's literally teaching you the power of self control, the
ooh,
power of emotional intelligence, and understanding if you are to have influence, authority, power, and leadership, you cannot be easily offended. You cannot wear your emotions on your sleeve. You
yeah,
cannot control other people, what they think, how they feel, even in how they see you. One of the things I say a lot in my coaching programs, what people think about me is none of my business. Now, I know that sounds like an oxymoron based on what we just talked about with the situation in the workplace and how people saw you and asked you, have you had your coffee? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about there's another level of people that are in the earth that's walking around with so much insecurity, and they're nervous, they're afraid what people are saying, what people are thinking, and they don't have self reliance. They don't understand who they are and whose they are. So, this book, The Unoffendable, I'm like, Lord, teach me how not to be offended because people stuff is people stuff. What do you think?
I think you're right, and I'm going to get that. And you're so right because sometimes we do allow people and their issues to change our trajectory at times because we're thinking that we're not showing up properly or we're not doing something that we should to make people happy, and it really doesn't matter because if we're doing what we should be doing for what we're called to do, then that's all that really is. So
Mhm.
undefendable.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm going to be
yeah.
reading Amazon.
Yes. And another one that I want to share too, because I think as leaders, and I know you're all over the place, I see you on your platforms doing things. And, Sacred Rest is a really great book because I think what we have to be willing to do also is to take care of ourselves. Sometimes we're not getting enough sleep, and that's why we're not having good influence because we're cranky because we're exhausted. Sacred care, sacred rest, being mindful, breathing. That's one of the things I talk about a lot. We got to take the time, got to breathe in, got to breathe out.
Mm.
How many times do we do that a day? Like, I'd be like, who got time to be breathing? I got to get here, I got to do there. But literally taking the time to breathe in and to breathe out. Because it slows us down, it slows our mind down. And of course, I love anything around visualization, the power of our words. So I love to read a lot of nonfiction books, biographies. You know, how did Colonel Sanders do what he did in his 60s? When some people feeling like, well, I'm 35, it's too late for me, you know? So yeah, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Talk to us a little bit about anything that you're doing that you want people to know. And if people want to get in and, get in contact with you, maybe they need some HR services, HR strategists. Maybe they need some more information in how to get to their next as relates to working with teams. What are you doing right now, and how do people reach you?
So I actually have two platforms. I have Canary HR Consulting, which is an HR boutique, as you know, and we help organizations with their HR infrastructure and strategy. And then I have Flourish Leadership, where we help train leaders on how to lead these organizations that we help build up. And so you can find me on both platforms, www.canaryhr.com and or iflourishleadership.com. And on social media, I am Dr. Tania White on LinkedIn, Dr. Tania White. And I also am I Flourish Leadership and Canary HR on Facebook, as
Mm,
well as on Instagram. Coming up, I talked about how we show up and how we handle other people impact
mm,
others, right? And so I was very much so moved by recent acts of people committing suicide because
mm,
they were not heard in HR, and they felt like that was the last thing they can do because they were being bullied at work and the workplace was so toxic and they didn't have an outlet. And so I'm actually in a process of launching a program called the HR Advocate, where it's your own private personal HR professional in your pocket. And
mm,
is that a lot of people, they may have HR at their jobs, but they don't feel like they can trust those HR people because they say they work for the company and they feel like I have a complaint. I don't know if I'm doing the right things. And so the HR Advocate program is really a program where we work with you and we help you if you have career questions, we can help work with you at that. Or if you're being discriminated at work, discriminated against, or facing workplace harassment, we can just talk you through the steps that you need to take to help you, one, either reach out to those in your corporation to get a response and get support. But if for some reason you're not getting what you need from your HR and you're not
mhm,
your corporation, then we teach you and show you how to now file legally with the state and press charges if you need to do that. And we support you through that process and just really give you an outlet so that your voice can be heard. And so that program is launching on May 20th. And so you can find out information on that program on my websites as well. And then we are also launching a consulting business mastery bootcamp where we're teaching those who are interested in starting your own consulting firms how to launch and start a successful six-figure consulting firm. And then I have the one-on-one coaching, and you can get that from a discovery call by hitting the website and logging in from there as well. And then for those
wonderful.
have entrepreneurial ventures and you're just starting, you don't need HR as of yet, then we also offer the Essential HR Guide for Leaders. And that's a book that was written that will show you how to assess your HR department to see your risk and where you are. And for canary, just so you know, canaries were used in mining times, and a canary bird was sent into the mine to test to see if it was toxic or not. And if the
Mm,
came out, they knew that it was safe to go in. And so that's why canaries are so vital for us. And we're called Canary HR Consultant because we are there to nurture your talent and minimize your risk to make sure that your organizations are not toxic. And so that's
beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful. I love it all. So, in our closing, we're almost there. My whole platform is Mindset to Millions, and you got to have good infrastructure. So, that's why Dr. Tania White is on tonight, the whole HR consultant and how to deal with difficult people, people that are not so difficult, how to see yourself, self reflect, emotional intelligence, even on the legal side. Because one of the things that I know and I hear with other colleagues that are in different areas of work, even racism and sexism and ageism and so much stuff that they're dealing with. How would you suggest that what you're doing, how does it tie in with mindset? My platform is Mindset to Millions. And I brought you on because I know it ties in. But can you share with the people how important mindset is in everything that you do, even around HR?
Mindset is everything. And I'm not just saying it because it's cliche and it's what to say. Mindset truly is everything. And it all starts with your thinking. What's a man thinketh, so is he, right? What you think about and how you think about situations will result in how you respond to situations. And so you have to first think through and know that you can handle a situation, that you can set a goal, that you have vision, and in thinking through that, then you can see it out. And so you have to build up your mindset. You have to make sure that you are um, reflecting on things that would
Mm,
just you so that you can properly take action and do the things that need to be done. In order to get to the millions, you have to first think about it. You have to see yourself there. You have to plan. You have to know that you can get over a situation. You have to not allow the fact that somebody flipped you the bird driving in make you so upset that now you can't walk into this meeting and run this meeting properly. And so
mm,
think and your mindset is essential to your success in every area of your life. It really is. And when we think about HR, when we think about how you show up, a lot of times people get fired because they have a poor mindset, because they think, well, I'm not going to do that, or I've been affected negatively in the past, and they can't change how they're thinking about a situation. They can't change how they want to show up for work and how they want to present themselves. And so it really all starts with a thought, a single
mm,
thought. Starts with,
mm.
and if you get that together, then the sky is the limit for you, for any of them. So mindset is truly everything. I have
So powerful, so powerful. And that's the thing I love about you, Dr. Tania. You are very straightforward in your thought process, and you're always dropping nuggets and knowledge and helping people elevate their thinking, and going deeper, around emotional intelligence and how to work with and to deal with people. In our closing, is there any last words that you would like to share? I know I asked you a lot of questions tonight and you just jumped right in and answered those so eloquently. But is there any lasting questions that you would like to, well, comments that you would like to share with the audience on tonight?
Yes, thank you. I think what I really want to share is do not underestimate the power of your influence and the impact that your influence can have, not just on you, but on generations and legacy.
Mm,
What you do today will last for a lifetime if you do it right. And so just don't underestimate who you are. Tap into who you are. Be a life learner. Continue to grow. Continue to see yourself at that next phase. And if can't nobody else see you there, see yourself there and then watch yourself go there and then celebrate once you get there.
mm. I love all of that. I approve this message. I love it all. Thank you so much, woman of God, for gracing our platform on tonight. And I've learned so much. And as you was talking, I was actually taking notes as well. I think I want to add this to those who are listening. Understanding that you belong at all the tables that God has called you to. Understand that you have the power to have the influence, the leadership, the personality, whatever you need to do to be as a team leader, as a boss babe, as a girl boss, as Dr. Marcia says, whoever you have been called into earth to be, you have it. And one of the things that Dr. Tania talks a lot about is the mastery of self-leadership and confidence to make bold moves. I'm always hearing her say that. You got to be willing to have self-leadership, confidence to make bold moves. So whatever your bold mood is out there in Radio Land, make it. Do it even if you have to do it afraid. Reach out to coaches like myself. Tami Harris Coaching is my website. Tami Harris Coaching. Reach out, take a look. If it's something that we can help you with, we want to help you. Tania, again, Dr. Tania, tell them your website again if they want to reach out to you.
You can find me quickly at canaryhr.com. And from
Easily.
that to my other website, I Flourish. So canaryhr.com.
Absolutely. And always, I want to tell you, if you're looking for real estate, we can help you with that as well. And that's TammieHgroup.com, Tami, the letter H group.com. You know, it's about building generational wealth, generational legacy, mindset to millions, walking in your healthy, wealthy, and wise place. And that's why we call it Mindset to Millions. I'm so glad I lived to tell the story. Thank you, Dr. Tania, for coming on tonight. What a pleasure, what an honor to have you with us. And I want to tell my listeners, thank you, Renee. I see you on. Coach Rich, our fearless leader. Thank you for jumping on tonight. Come back next week, Monday night, the same time, 8 p.m. We're going to be bringing you more nuggets to empower you, to inspire you, to encourage you to get to your next. Make it a great night, and I will see you at the top. God bless.